If you were paid thousands of dollars to film a wedding and your car didn't start the day of the wedding, what would you do? Well, it happened to us. Hi, my name's Joe.
And I'm Melissa.
We're wedding videographers and welcome to Storytime. So sit back, relax, have a cup of coffee, and enjoy some of the crazy stories that have happened to us. And hopefully at the end of this, maybe we can learn something from it. So today we're actually focusing on just kind of like mishaps?
Yeah, and they're really kind of funny things that have happened, because something you definitely don't want to do is be late to the wedding.
Yeah, for sure. And I mean, so there's 3 stories that I figured we could kind of just talk about today. I think there's things that we've definitely learned from and kind of try to be better about in the future weddings. Fortunately, we got to all 3 of those weddings, but it was stressful. And I think it could happen to anybody. So I figured the best one we could start on is the one that happened most recently, which is the one that happened this past summer.
Okay.
So, okay, just in a bit of context, you and I have talked about it, but that wedding we were super excited to film.
Yeah, it was going to be this really gorgeous wedding at a venue that we'd never been to before. And the venue was actually really close to us. It's if we drive from there, it's 5 minutes from us. So it wasn't a big deal, but we still wanted to make sure we got there on time.
But again, we were excited about the wedding. It was a couple we were really excited to film, and also a wedding planner we're really excited to work work with, and we were hoping to develop a relationship. So there was a lot there was a lot to it. We were excited for it. So we get everything ready. The day of the wedding, we're going to the car.
We live in an apartment, by the way, so we have to park in a parking garage. And so we're about to leave the parking garage, and guess what happens?
Well, the garage doesn't open. So we were okay.
It's stuck. We
Yeah,
keep
it was
trying
stuck.
to open it, and it won't open.
Yeah, it couldn't open, and we're okay, that's weird. I mean, it's happened in the past, but never
On a wedding
day. And it happened on one of the wedding days. We wanted to just kill it and do a great job, and the garage door wouldn't open. And so I remember we were in the parking garage, we were stuck, we couldn't get out. And then even one of the neighbors was yeah, we've been trying to open it, do you want to stay for a little bit? And I was I mean, I have a wedding to film, I need to leave.
I didn't go into panic mode. I went into action mode. What can we do next? No?
No, I feel you panicked.
No.
Yeah, I feel you did. Because, you're what do we do? Remember?
No.
Okay, well, I remember you're what do we do? And we're I was just okay, let's just get an Uber.
Oh yeah, we
Yes,
tried to get in touch
yeah.
with an Uber.
So we tried to get an Uber, and then...
But they were all
too
far
the
away.
Nearest one, it was going to take, 15, 20 minutes
Which
to
is
get
weird, because we
there.
live downtown. You think there would be Ubers, everywhere.
Oh, I
They were
remember.
taking a while.
Yeah, it was 15, 20 minutes, and then they canceled it.
I think at that point, we just decided to grab all of our gear, which is a lot of gear. We rolled it outside, up a ramp, around the building, and we were just hoping to see something, I think, at that point.
Well, I figured we'd go up there because the Uber was going to pick us up in the front.
Oh,
right?
yeah.
So we figured we roll everything up, and then that was when the Uber canceled. And then the Uber canceled, we're okay, well, let's order another one. We still had about 20 minutes of cushion, and we're this is cutting it close.
We saw, I think it was my idea. I saw somebody, he was parking in front of the building. We had no idea who he was. And I was we should ask that guy for a ride. Was that my idea? Did I say that?
I think so, I guess. I just
and then
remember...
you were kind of I don't know.
Yeah, I mean, it was just a random guy.
It was a random person parking in front of our building.
It was a random guy. And I went up to him. I guess it was your idea. And I just said, look, hey, hey, man.
And I was guarding all the stuff.
And I was hey, guy. So I have a weird request. We live here. The parking garage is closed. And we're needing to go to film a wedding. It's 5 minutes from here. I'm could you take us? I have $20 cash. And he's he just stares at me and he's all right.
So we load all of our gear into this random guy's vehicle, and he drove us. Nothing happened, but it's just, I think the takeaway is that we were just so desperate. Like, we just asked this random person and gave him all the cash we had.
Well, we had $20. It was not all the cash we had. But, like, I mean, we got there on time and the wedding day was fine. But it was stressful. Like, we did just resolutely trust this guy with all of our gear to take us to a wedding venue.
It's not fun when you don't have a car.
Yeah, and especially for, like, the wedding day. And that's just the reality of it. Like, wedding days are unpredictable. There's so much pressure. And then if something just goes off, like, it just adds, like, more stress. And, like, that's just kind of what we learned. So that was the most recent thing that happened this year. But we've had a couple of things that have gone, I wouldn't say wrong, but that have just, I think, have given us additional stress because, like, things just happen the day of the wedding. So it was during the winter. We had a winter wedding and it snowed the day before. But typically the people in the apartment salt the driveway. And I think that, like, again, that was probably our fault. We trusted too much that other people would do their job. Well, and so it didn't happen.
So here's a little bit of context. So like we said, we live in a parking garage. But to leave our parking garage, you have to drive up a ramp because our parking garage is underground. So that's the key here. So we expected the ramp to be salted.
And it wasn't.
It wasn't?
Yeah, it wasn't.
It was icy?
Yeah, it was icy. And so, we drive out and we see the ice, and then I was like, okay, well, if I get a good head start, I should be able to make it. And obviously that didn't work out. We got there halfway.
We got stuck.
And we were just stuck. And
we were like pushing on the gas, like spinning, burning rubber. Basically.
Yeah, basically, because it was gaining no traction. And again, so we were like, okay, maybe we'll kind of go back. But then when we start going back, the car starts like swerving to the side.
There was a car behind us too.
Yeah, we're stuck. But there was a guy there just in the driveway. He was like walking his dog or something.
And he pushed our car.
Yeah, he was like, hey, do you guys need help? And we're like, yes, we do. Please help us. And so he was just pushing from the back.
He's
and
like, you can make it.
But we burned a lot of rubber.
Yeah, we hurt our tires pretty bad.
But we were getting up there little by little. If it weren't for him, like, we wouldn't have made it out.
Unless one of us got out and pushed.
Yeah.
And I think I mentioned the night before, I was like, should we park outside? I think I remember saying that. You remember that?
Okay, let's not blame shit. Either way, we got out. But again, like, there are lessons, like, learned on some of these things. And so, yeah, we got there on time. It worked out. But it was just stressful, right? Like, I think there's things, we typically always plan, like, for the day of the wedding, like, in the wedding. But there is some sense in planning even, like, to arrive to the wedding, So, and then we had another one. And this one was, this was the first time it actually, like, something like this ever happened to us. And this was last year. It was a summer wedding. And our car was working fine. But the day of the wedding, again, we were about to leave.
We packed up the car.
And we left a little bit early. And the car wouldn't start. Like, it just wouldn't start. Man, it was working fine the day before. And that was the first time, like, anything like that ever happened to us. Like, I do remember it was like the car wouldn't start. We're like, okay, like, what do we do? I think we were contemplating Uber.
Yeah, I think we talked about it, but your parents do live nearby, so I think you called
your
dad.
Did.
He was able to get there faster.
Yeah, I called my dad, and he just, thankfully, we had family there, and he just drove there. And honestly, that was super nice of him because he was just like, just take my car, like, you can leave, and we just left. And then thankfully we had family pick him up, but he helped us out, like, big time.
But for that being the first time, I remember just feeling like, just like this drop in your stomach, like, oh my goodness, like.
Yeah, because we've talked about it in the past. You're like, oh, it would stink if, like, the car would not start, or if the garage door wouldn't open.
To go from, like, super focus mode, like, you're ready for showtime, and then suddenly, like, something like that happens. Do you remember how you felt? Yeah,
I do remember, like, I was stressing out, and also just, I was worried that we'd get there late. So we needed to, like, let the bride know. So I do remember I texted her and just saying, like, hey, like, this is the situation. We may get there just a little bit late. And how it worked out is we just ended up getting there, like, 5 minutes late. So it wasn't a big deal. But it was because, again, like, I think we're leaving a little early.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I've always been the type of person who like doesn't over prepare, but fortunately I married somebody who does over prepare, and you're always very like, we need to get there on time. We need to in fact get there way early just in case something happens. And I think because of that, like it's always helped us.
What would you say, like, some lessons learned? Like, what do you think we've learned?
I mean, for me, you know, I definitely see the importance of leaving early, arriving early. If you arrive too early to a wedding, you know, you just have breathing room, right? And that's what we want, because anything can happen. Like, there are probably going to be other weddings where more things happen, you know?
Yeah, and just kind of like touching on what you said, get there early. Like, we always, like, I talk about this with my wife, always aim to arrive at the venue 30 minutes before. Like, that should be just the standard. Plan to arrive at the very least 30 minutes before. Sometimes, and we've talked about it, especially if it's a longer drive, I try and get there an hour before. Because that gives us cushion where if something happens, or we need to stop at a gas station, we need to pick up something, we have time. We have time. And I rather that we get there early, because things have happened. And since we were already planning to leave early, when those things happened, we didn't get there late. It only happened that one occasion where we arrived 5 minutes late. But we've always gotten there like early. But I think the biggest thing, the most important thing, is communicate with the couples. Thankfully, those other two occasions, since we left so early, we had some cushion, we got there and it was just fine. But the one where we did end up getting there late, we kept in touch with the bride and she was totally understandable. Like, she understood, and it was completely fine.
Yeah, I think people are, people are very understanding if you just explain and you just communicate, you know? So sometimes we're like, oh, maybe I can just get away with it and they don't have to know. I think having an open communication is always
Oh yeah, for sure.
important.
Yeah, so as you can see, like, things just happen in a wedding day. Even before the wedding day starts, like, you just kind of have to, like, roll with the punches. But I hope that you guys pulled something from, I think, some of the experiences like we've gone through, because things happen. You know, you just have to roll with the punches. That's just part of being a wedding videographer. Things happen. Things don't, like, the wedding day doesn't revolve around you, but you have to adjust to it so that you make sure that you're there for the couple, because the wedding day is for them. So we hope you guys enjoyed this story time. But a question. Have you ever stressed wondering if your couple will love their wedding film? Well, this video right here might be beneficial for you. Why don't you give it a click? Go ahead. Click on it.
There you go.
Do they click it?